Hi guys. So today we're going to be talking about planetary contacts with the nodes. I have Miss Taryn coming on here in just a moment. I'm super excited to talk about this because there's a lot to unbox here, a lot to kind of talk about as it relates to the nodes. And the nodes are one of my favorite points of study as well as Taryn's. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her perspectives and just kind of going through and talking about all of the astrological things that we both know. So I met Taryn through the fabulous TikTok, which is pretty fun because I wouldn't have found quite a lot of you if it weren't for TikTok. So I'm very grateful for that. And so I'm very looking forward to talking with her today specifically about the nodes and about the way that the nodal axis kind of works, and then specifically how, specifically planets in contact with the North Node is what I am very, very excited about. So we're going to be talking about, hey Melissa, we're going to be talking about the nodal axis with that. We're going to be talking for quite some time. We're going to go through every single planetary conjunction to the North Node, mainly by by natal and by transit for the most part. And we're going to be talking about the nodal axis in that way, and kind of just how every single combination can show up with the energy of being combined with the nodes. So I'm really excited about this conversation. I have my little Jupiter and Virgo notes that I took months ago. So we're going to be talking about more of the outer planets as it conjuncts the nodes and what you see in the birth chart as well as in transit when the nodes get conjunct. Oh, thank you. When the nodes get conjunct planetary bodies. So Sun North Node, Moon North Node, Venus, Mercury, Mars. You guys know the planets. I don't know why I'm even telling you all this. So I'm just waiting for her to get on here soon. So she should be here pretty shortly. So yeah, I'm honestly just waiting for her, and then we're definitely gonna talk more about just all those things, and then we're gonna leave it on the end of the conversation is gonna be about the North Node with Uranus specifically, because that's what we're all kind of going through with the North Node in Taurus and Uranus also in Taurus. So we're gonna be talking about that as well. So I'm just, like I said, just waiting. Mercury just went direct last night, and I was up all night thinking. So I'm surprised that this is working, because my mind was just so I guess let me message her. Let me see. Yo, are you coming into the live? Let's see if everyone's here. So anywho, but yeah, so we're gonna be talking about quite a lot as it relates to the nodes. Yeah, I definitely couldn't sleep at all with Mercury went direct. Literally, I spent an hour researching last night, more so than any other sign. And any other night I was really researching and learning about my Jupiter and Virgo more so, and just oh, there she is. There's Miss Taryn pulling up there in the DMs, in the live, all the things. Yeah, so you have Uranus conjunct South Node. Actually, I have Uranus conjunct North Node, so we have a lot to talk about. That's one of the ones that I'm really excited to talk about, because there's a lot of things going on there. So, all right, so Taryn is here, so we're gonna put her in the conversation whenever she pull up. Yay! Hello! Oh my gosh! Hello!
Hey!
Wait, are you
Okay.
frozen? No!
I know.
Hello! You're good. How are you? Oh my god, no! Why is Mercury not Mercury-ing right now? Why is this okay, now can I see you? Yeah? I think we're good now. We're good now?
Yes,
Okay.
I think we're good now. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know why I had such a hard time getting on this live, but
It's okay. It's mainly because Mercury, I don't know. Let's just blame it on Mercury being not retrograde, and it'll be fine. It's okay.
yes, some shadow stuff, yeah. Cool.
I think I like how we're both wearing very similar cardigan
Yes.
black outfits. They're super cute.
We even have the hoops matching.
Oh, we do really? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we do! Wow.
Perfect.
Twinsies. I love it. So I was kind of talking before you get in here about what we're going to be talking about, the planetary energies and things like that. Um, so, and what I did last time I did a live was we kind of went through all the planetary bodies and all those sorts of things. And then from there, we just kind of opened it up to a Q&A at the end and just kind of had people ask questions about what they thought about the nodal axis, or, well, in this example, what the nodal axis was, and those sorts of things. And then we just opened up to Q&A of, well, how we would interpret certain things in a chart with different planetary things with the nodes. So yeah,
Awesome.
I guess, well, where do you want to start? I guess is my question. What do you want to just start with? Like, do you want to just dive right in, or what do you want to do, like a little like precursor, like intro? Because you don't go live typically on Instagram, so.
Yeah, no, I like never go live on Instagram. But yeah, I was thinking we could start just talking about like the different interpretations of what the nodes are, how
Yeah,
you see it. We can talk about that a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know each other from astrology, from TikTok world, though.
We do, from the
So,
TikTok astrology life. Yeah, I know. I was saying that earlier. I was like, yeah, met her through TikTok. It's great. Um,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, we could talk about that. We could definitely talk about the nodes and kind of our both opinions on them, because I know you have a different take. Well, not a different take, but um, your own. Well, just go ahead and just share what you think, and then we'll just kind of start the conversation there.
Awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, obviously there's like really different perspectives on what the nodes are, and I found it really interesting because I feel like like the collective opinion of it, I've seen it kind of change over time the past
Mm-hmm.
few years, which I think is so interesting. And so there is the interpretation that they're both kind of negative things that we have to be careful of. And then there's also the interpretation that the South Node is something that's like overly familiar. That's more of like the evolutionary perspective, something that you've like really done in past lives, and that is like almost your resting state, so much that like if you choose to kind of hang out in that energy, then you're not balancing it. And so the progression is into the North Node, not to get rid of the South Node, always keep the best of that, but to find some sense of balance and integration, which is what astrology is. It's always about polarity, about two opposite things that actually are the same. And so to find the wholeness of the soul, it's about realizing the extent to which you lean into the South Node, and then letting your life journey naturally take you towards your North Node. And I personally find that, like, sometimes people will ask me, like, oh, should I be doing this for my North Node? And I'm always like, I feel like you have an intuitive sense, like you'll always be drawn towards it. Um, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's more about like not resisting the flow taking
Mm-hmm.
you there, and less
Mm-hmm.
about like actively trying to go after it, is what I found. But they're considered to be super karmic. I personally see them as very much relating to past lives and what the soul is kind of doing. My way of seeing it is kind of like the chart is you, it's your book, it's your life story, but
Uh-huh.
the notes are kind of like the spine of the book. It's like, which includes the cover and everything. Like, it's
Yeah.
really the contents of like where the story's going, and then everything else will be what's going on within it. So I
Yeah.
find them to be super important, and planets conjunct them will be key themes, like inescapable themes of the life.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah. I
yeah.
love that, and I think that's I just I love listening to you talk, and it's just like so like informative, and I'm like, yes, I love it, and I definitely agree with you, and I think there's a lot of perspectives in the nodes that, like you said, they do kind of change, and it kind of depends, and I think there's a big theme of like past lives within it, and I think there are some people that, I'm not one of them, and I'm pretty sure you're not one of them either, but there are some people that don't believe in past lives, so they use it more for the sense of like the like younger conditioning, or kind of like the things you were kind of born into, in a sense, less so like what you received from a past life, and that sort of philosophy. So that is like another approach to it. It's not what I really prescribe to, but it is something that sometimes I bring up to clients, just because it's like, well, if you don't have that sort of like mindset where you're like, oh yeah, I was definitely born before, I definitely had reincarnation, if that's not like an already like a thing within your sort of paradigm, then it doesn't really get through in the same sort of way. But the thing that I actually really like, that I kind of prescribe to the nodes, is a lot of this aspect of like the South Node is a lot of spiritual release. So wherever the South Node is like you kind of have this this feeling of like it is like never enough in that way, but it's almost like you have to approach it from a very spiritual, like kind of like letting go and letting God sort of moment, and kind of just letting the universe just trust that you'll be provided with that thing, whatever it is, whether it's, you know, constellation, house, planetary body, and kind of just trust and have more of a spiritual approach to that. Because in Vedic astrology, it's related to Ketu, which is like a very, very, very spiritual energy. That is like, it's like this just like acceptance, and K2 typically puts you a lot more towards the actual spiritual path, more of like the spiritual guru sort of thing, whereas the North Node, which is Rahu, is more of like the foreign, the different, the strange. And I find a lot with the North Node, wherever it's at, it kind of makes that area so like weird and foreign and different to you that you can't help but like want to explore it, or you can't help but want to like move in that direction, because it's just so like exciting and new and different. And the universe will throw you things to kind of like be like, hey, yeah, you got this, like, you know, this South Node thing, but the North Node's like really enticing and really cool, and it's like really interesting to go in this direction. And your mind kind of is like, okay, well, I guess I have to try this, I guess I have to step into this. And it's more of, for me, I look at it more of like, kind of like a progression, but there's like an analogy in my head, but I can't quite place it. But it's like moving from kind of like a, not really a boring life in a sense, but moving from that into something that's like brand new and like exciting and very, very like just like invigorating, and like it brings you energy, as opposed to the South Node kind of drains that energy from you. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of that is kind of my way of looking at it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that approach.
Yeah.
Definitely. I feel like we're kind of aligned with how we're seeing it.
Oh yeah,
So,
100%. Yeah. I mean, we
yeah,
wouldn't be doing this live if we weren't, but yeah.
very true. Yeah, no, something like I always tell people who are curious about the nodes that are a little bit like, I'm not sure about the whole past lives thing. Because I know some people really lean away from the spiritual astrology and like are like, no, I need to know how this is affecting this life and like physical circumstances. Is it's like the South Node is that like even your childhood. Like I really think of you as like a fish in water of your South Node in the beginning of life.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go, it's like you're literally like almost, I don't know why I just got this image of like a fish like jumping out of the
Yeah.
fishbowl, but like
evolving.
you
Yeah.
gotta like just jump out at some
Yeah.
point. But yeah, so well, very cool.
Yeah. Love that.
Is anything else on kind of the interpretations what they are?
I think we'll kind of get through them as we go through like the planetary things. But I think that it is important just to recognize that there is a lot of the South Node and North Node are a lot more heavily like focused on in Vedic astrology and Kabbalistic astrology as more of like a much deeper importance in the sense of the spiritual development. But I think we've kind of already kind of hit on that. I think that's something that like we just both kind of know. And I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of the nodes. And also because of like kind of the way eclipses work too. I think that's another thing that we might want to like kind of mention in this little part is like the way eclipses work as it relates to the nodes. Because I think it's difficult to kind of conceptualize of the North Node and South Node unless you're in an eclipse period and you're like, oh, okay. And then like you can like you like see all the chaos and craziness and you're like, okay, this makes sense. You know what I mean? So I think if we wanted to talk about that really briefly, just kind of like how eclipses are kind of related to that, and then just kind of go into the planetary contacts, I think would be probably the best.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's actually a perfect kind of example of the importance of the lunar nodes because of the fact that like eclipses always involve the nodes, and it's really about like there's energy there. You know, it's the opposition of the sun and moon, the furthest extent. And like you literally can see this if you study the stories of people born on an eclipse. Like they have an ecliptic life. Like that chaotic energy you mentioned, like their life will always have that playing out over and over and over again. So Yeah, and I also actually find like new moon babies born with their sun and moon conjunct either node is like also really interesting too.
Yeah.
But it's less obvious because of the fact that the full moon as a lunar phase is about involvement in the world and like really being out there doing stuff, whereas like the new moon is more behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the eclipses are very significant. And I feel like, yeah, we do all kind of get a little sense of like the importance of the nodes when we're going through eclipses, even just collectively, but then also the aftermath of it of like, whoa, everything's changed, but it's like aligning with destiny kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think just like you said, like kind of bringing that energy of kind of like the eclipses and kind of like how that, how that relates to, what am I trying to say? How that relates to like the energy that we're experiencing. And I think it's really interesting when we go through eclipse periods, all astrologers are just kind of like, well, like they kind of like put their hands up in a sense, and they're just kind of like, well, this is like the wild card moment where we're just like, anything's possible. And like astrologers don't really like, we can know like kind of what's going on and where we're going with eclipses, but even then it's like, I don't know, like, so I think that in itself, like kind of the way that astrologers respond to eclipses every time it kind of happens, kind of gives you an idea of how these nodes kind of work, where it's still kind of foreign to even us as astrologers, where we're kind of like, well, we got it, but we kind of like when it happens and it's eclipse period, we're kind of like, well, like I go like mad hermit mode and just like go like within and just like just be like, I'm just gonna get through this, like just get in a bunker. But it's really really a karmic shift of kind of like if you're not going in the right direction during an eclipse, or even sometimes, well, specifically like if it's the eclipse of your like nodal axis, if you're not going in the right direction, the universe is going to say, hey, let's put you right on path, you know what I mean? And I think that's so north node of everything, where it's like you just can't avoid it. Like the universe is going to like make everything fall in place perfectly so that you can just like go. And I think another part of it too about the eclipses is that when you think about it, we're not able during an eclipse to like really be connected to the solar or lunar energies within like just ourselves. And I think that shows a lot of the importance of those energies and the importance of us to be able to connect to those luminaries and connect to like, our sense of self and, our inner world and our like sort of like subconscious motives and things and conscious motives. And I think when the eclipses happen, and that's kind of eclipsed out and we're not able to really utilize those sorts of like ways of connection, you can really see how we have to rely on, just trusting the universe and trusting that everything's going to put us in the right direction, and kind of like not really like let go of like a lot of things, and just kind of trust and go in the direction that we're supposed to. That's really what I see a lot of that too. So
Yeah. Yeah, the eclipse is like the aligning with destiny kind of energy. But it's funny because everyone, like, I don't know, a lot of people I've noticed will ask, like, oh, what's going to happen on the eclipse? And it's like, the point is that, like, we can't tell you. I don't know. Changes, shifts will happen, but it'll all be for the best. But it's going to feel chaotic. And yeah, that's like the lunar node energy for sure.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
super different and not like astrologically related, but it kind of has a similar energy of like a Uranus transit if Uranus transits were quick.
I was like, of course. I was waiting for one of us to say Uranus, and I was like, where is it coming? It's gonna happen.
Yeah. No,
I
yeah.
agree though. I agree.
So, yeah, Uranus.
Yeah, I was waiting for us to say to bring up our Uranus stuff. But I think too, and I did mention this before you got on to everybody, that we are gonna kind of talk about a lot of the Uranus North Node transit kind of at the later end of this, as we kind of go through a lot of this, just because that's obviously what we're all kind of going through, with Uranus and Taurus and the North Node in Taurus. So we're kind of prepping for that conjunction, which I think is in like August. I should look it up, but I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's coming up pretty soon. So we'll definitely talk about that when we get there. But so pretty much what we're going to do I just want to like clarify too. We're going like kind of in the planetary order, right? So we're gonna go like obviously planetary order, and then like conjunct this the north node. And do you want to do the south node too, or do you just want to do north node?
For all the planets?
Yeah, I'm like that would take a long time. That's why I'm like I don't know which.
Yeah.
You just want to do north node?
I think we should probably try to stick to North Node because, yeah, like we were talking
Okay.
about before, we both have Aries Mercuries and like we could really,
Or like fire, yeah. We have Mercury, Jupiter, so we're just gonna go wild. Yeah. Yeah.
or
We'll just do
sorry,
north
fire
node.
Mercuries, yeah.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I wish I had an Aries Mercury. That'd be so much better. In my opinion, I really do. Okay. Yeah. So then I guess we will start with obviously the Sun conjuncting the North Node. Unless you have anything else you want to add about like eclipses and just in general before we get started on kind of going through it.
No, I think we can kind of dive in. Before we do, I want to say like the personal planets conjuncting North Node versus outer planets to me have like very different kind of energies and maybe intentions. Like outer planets are a little more karmic in some sense, which we can talk about like specifically what that means. But the sun and moon in particular are so interesting to see conjuncting either node because I mean they're part of what the lunar nodes are made of. And so to me that's always like a big kind of a destiny indicator. Yeah, so there's a few like I'll probably mention I definitely will mention celebrity charts as we go through
I
this
know
because
that's why I was like I have to talk to you because you have all the notes. Like I love it. But yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few like in particular we can talk about, but like there's with the sun and moon conjuncting like the North Node, we have people like Grimes and like my favorite example of this is Ryan Reynolds, which we'll talk more specifically about the sun, but he has his Scorpio sun and moon conjuncting his North Node, and like you have to laugh because everyone like literally is like this is the universally attractive man, like even like it doesn't matter. Yeah. And he has a double Scorpio conjuncting the North Node, which is like too on the nose, in my opinion.
That's very true. See, I don't look at I don't go like I do astrology like for celebrities or celebrity charts, but I don't go like that deep in that because I've seen your like pretty much research where you have like all these like these things, and I'm just like wow, and that is very sun and moon conjunct the North Node, honestly, and I think. Yeah, I didn't even know about Ryan Reynolds. I should know that because like he's just like super hot, obviously, but I like didn't look at his chart because I just never really have. And I think, but the sun conjunct the North Node by itself, I think, is it's always something for me that I'm just like, you're gonna be fine. Like you're fine, you know. Like you just chill, you're fine, you know. Because the North Node is like what you want to express, right? And the sun is like your ego. It's like your self-expression. It's literally like you. So as long as you keep, you know, literally breathing and existing and having a solar energy, which you will always have, you're going to keep developing that North Node, you know? And I think people with sun conjunct the North Node are like, in my opinion, like destined to be famous in some sort of way. And I know a lot of people that I've read, at least celebrity charts that I do remember that have sun conjunct the North Node. The most notable one I remember right now is Tori Kelly that I've read before. So she has the sun in Sagittarius conjunct the North Node in Sagittarius, and she did a whole thing where she ended up going and becoming like a gospel singer now, where she used to be like more like poppy sort of, and she still is, but she just kind of fell into that fame and kind of just really just kept developing it. Granted, it was Sagittarius, so it's more of like just natural luck in that way. And then I think there's another, I want to say there's another celebrity that has their North Node conjunct the sun. Well, we know about the great, you know, previous president that has his luminaries. Yeah, his eclipse. He's an eclipse baby. So there's that. I can't think of. There's other sun North Node people. I just can't think of off the top of my head.
Doja Cat has sun.
There's one. I was like, I know there's plenty of them. And I know you have them on deck in your head, so I'm just like, let's talk about it.
It's so weird that I do this, but yes. Yeah, so yeah, I agree though. I feel like the sun conjunct the North Node, like their destiny, so to speak, what they will always, because I also see the North Node as like a little bit of the Vedic approach where it's like a craving, like something like you really don't know why, but like you feel like you need to chase it on some level. But it's also something that will naturally unfold. But it's like sun on the north node, you are literally headed towards shining your light. You're headed towards expressing yourself, towards your creativity. Super beautiful energy. But it's like, yeah, Donald Trump has his north node conjunct his sun. But there can also be like, because we're starting at the south node, right? And so south node opposite the sun would be a little bit of struggles maybe early in life with the self-identity, with being able to kind of put yourself out there, being able to be like kind of just stand in your power or stand in your light in some sense. And so like from the perspective of like why do you have this soul path? It's like if your south node is opposite your north node, then maybe you've spent a lot of lifetimes like really just like hiding your light, like not sharing yourself with people. Or like, yeah, just kind of being more in the shadows and letting life happen around you. And so this journey into north node with the sun is like you're headed towards yourself. And it's like a little bit like north node in the first house in terms of like how I've found the life stories to play out, but different. It's not the same, but there's some,
there's some difference in that, because I think the north node in the first house, which we obviously can both talk about, versus north node sun, the north node sun is more of like a development of like, just like you said, shining your own light, whereas north node first house is more of like trusting your own self-assertion and trusting that you can manage the movement, like, because the first house is also more so like movement and kind of like the movement of life and the direction of life you go in, whereas the sun is more of like you're just kind of being like you just have to be you, and that's enough, you know. You don't have to like really like try and figure out life direction entirely with the north node sun conjunction. Obviously it depends on, you have to look at the whole chart, and of course you hear that probably all the time, but it's just a lot of like just development of the ego and actually being okay with having an ego, right? I think that's a lot of it too, is like being proud of being whatever that you know, north node sun placement is, like being proud of that, you know. Like one of my really good friends, he has his sun conjunct the north node in Libra, and he's like, he really loves relationships and he loves aesthetics and he loves those things, and he came from similar to what you said, where he kind of didn't shine his light younger when he was a kid, and he was very like unapproachable, or like just really like within himself and didn't want to be seen. But then eventually he started realizing that other people appreciated him, and he really liked collaborating with people and like being like connecting with people and, you know, Libra stuff, and he moved in that direction, and he's like getting more opportunities naturally. And I'm just like, it's the north node, but yeah, I'm like, good job, you know, like and I think a lot of it is just, it's just natural, like it's just a natural thing for the sun north node, I think, because it is part of that natural, you know, lunar solar ecliptic sort of thing. It's kind of what the moon's nodes are already connected to that sort of energy. So I think that's nice about the sun north node. So
no, it is a really nice one. And also, I mean, when we're talking about the luminaries, like sun north node and moon north node, like sun north node could have been very influenced in your life by the father figure, if you want to interpret it very literally. It could also be like you know, becoming some sort of a father figure to somebody at some point. It doesn't have to go that route, but that's another thing too, is sometimes there's a kind of karmic relationship with like the father that's part of that too. Like I kind of feel like that with Trump. I don't know, but just there's something there a lot of times too. But yeah, just in general, like headed towards your own light. Also with the luminaries on either node, or on the north node, either luminary on the north node, it's like there is on some level more of a natural familiarity to it, because like you already have part of you that's already there on your north node, which is like kind of cute. I don't know, I like that.
I know it is, and I really love seeing that in charts, because it just makes me so happy. I'm just like, you're just gonna have a life where like things are like it might seem chaotic, it might seem strange, weird, all this stuff, but it's going to be a life that you're really going to enjoy once you step into that north node, which when you have at least specifically the luminaries conjunct it, you're going to do it regardless of if you want to or not. And I think that's one of the things that, but it's not like, because the sun and moon are so like natural to us, that because whenever they're conjunct the north node, because they're so like personal to us, you know, the sun and moon, because people when they first get into astrology, they want to know that first. And if you know that that's like conjunct a north node, it's kind of like, well, okay, well, like I'm just going to naturally kind of be comfortable. I'm naturally going to fall into this. I'm naturally going to kind of develop this because it's part of an internal sort of process with the sun and moon, because it's so like close to home, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Sun North Node is a very sweet one to see,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Should we go on to the moon?
Yeah, for sure. We can go into the moon. I think this one's a little different because I think the moon north node, whereas the sun north node, because the sun is like this outer representation, things that you kind of just already are and just naturally kind of exude. The moon is like our private life. It's like our more internal, like sort of emotional caretaking to ourselves. And I've seen that people with the moon north node, although it is something that is easier for them to access because it is a luminary and it's really close to home, sometimes because it's so close to home, because it's the moon, you know, it's one of those things that you like don't want to share. You don't want to develop that. You don't want to get into that. And I find moon north node, I find, has a little bit more of the chaotic part of it than the sun north node, because I think the sun north node is a little bit more of a natural expression, because whereas the moon, because the sun's always going to be there, it doesn't wax and wane, it just progresses slowly through. It's like a very like cyclical thing, but it's not like an up and down like the moon is, right? So I think with the moon north node, I see a lot of times where people that have that, they have to get very in touch with themselves, because their waves, instead of feeling like this and kind of like up and down like a little bit, are feeling like extreme ends of it, because they have to learn how to really like stabilize their own emotional nature with the moon north node. So I've seen that a lot, and I think it's a little bit more quote difficult with the moon north node than versus the sun, because of that, you know, waxing and waning, up and down feeling that the moon naturally brings. So yeah.
So that's really interesting, and I agree. I think the moon is more difficult, so to speak, in that sense. And like some people will say that it can indicate like a lot of struggles, sometimes even like mental health stuff that can come up. I don't think it always has to be that route. But if you think also about the moon being your inner emotional world, but also your past, and then the north node being where you're headed, it's like there's typically pain there because you started opposite your moon. So you started life not fully like surrounded by lunar energy, feeling nurtured. Not all the time, but a lot of times that can be something that comes up. Starting life and you didn't feel like the moon energy was around you, and so you always wanted it. But then to get there, it's like the emotional nature will start to make more sense, but the past is always going to be with you, and actually it'll be more obvious the conditions. So there's a lot of healing that has to be done. And for moon north node people, my perspective is that like I see them sometimes having like this feeling like people don't get it, kind of like what they're going through, because there's just so much of like this back and forth, like future, past. But yeah, I mean, I do see sometimes like literally it'll show up as people becoming a mother someday, and then creating that lunar environment that like, or a parent of any sort, creating that lunar environment that they didn't have, which is like super sweet. But it's a roller coaster, the north node.
It is, and I've seen it.
Like
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say,
go ahead, you're good.
Paris Hilton, I believe, has that.
Is she really?
And
that's very like, that makes a lot of sense.
You can check me on that, but I think
right
Paris Hilton has a north node moon conjunction. I'm pretty sure, like, well, you know, disclaimer, I'm not saying anyone with a moon north node is ever gonna act like this, but like Charles Manson had that. Like, it just, you can tell there's an intensity.
Did he really? Did Charles Manson really have that? Oh wow, because I looked at his chart before, because he's the only other, not the only other, but like the most notable sun. Yeah, you're right. Paris Hilton does have the moon north node in Leo, but
the Leo.
Yeah, and then
Isn't it Charles in her Manson, 10th or something?
It's in her. It looks like it's in her 8th. I think. Hold on. Yeah, it's in her 8th. In Leo. She's a Sag rising, but I guess it's in her 8th by, well, yeah, it'd be in her 8th. Or 9th, 8th. Well, 9th by whole sign, 8th by Placidus. But no, Charles Manson, It's funny because I look at his chart pretty often because um, he's like the only other like notable Sun Scorpio Moon Aquarius combination. Um, besides,
Oh,
well, yeah,
interesting.
him. Well, him. It's really funny. So he has the Sun in Scorpio Moon Aquarius, and then oh my gosh, I almost forgot his name. Chris Brennan has the Sun in Aquarius, Sun in Scorpio Moon Aquarius. So I'm like, there's a
So
very
there you
big
get to.
distinct difference. Yeah, so
Oh my
he does have the
gosh.
Moon conjunct North Node in Aquarius. That's very see that is very interesting because I think a lot of it when you look at both of those celebrities as kind of an example of that, I think a lot of it is, and that's interesting too because they're opposite, you know, because one's the Moon one's the Moon North Node in Aquarius, one's the Moon North Node in Leo,
Leo.
and you know I think there's a lot of when you look at those examples, you see that there's a very strange approach to relationships that they both have, and a strange approach to cultivating relationships and what they value, right? And especially because like Paris Hilton has the Moon Leo North Node, so it's very much like about her and about showing her and all those sorts of things. And I mean, uh, and kind of shining that light. And I know she does have also I don't know if it's just recently or not, but she got like more involved with the creating the community or creating kind of a nurturing uh, what's that called? Like a nurturing sort of, not like a non-for-profit, but like some sort of nurturing community around what is that called? Like there's like some non-for-profit that she did, or some like charity thing that she did which was about development of like difficult, it was something about like difficult or like abusive relationships in the industry or something like that. So it's like something
Yeah.
along the lines of like childhood abuse and things of that nature, which is very much Leo North Node. It had to do with like childhood abuse and childhood
Yeah.
development. Whereas like Charles Manson was obviously Charles Manson, and it was like development of like a really like strange community, and it's one of those things where it was absolutely terrible, but I think it also showed people a lot of the ways that North Node in Aquarius can really like distort, because I don't think we haven't really mentioned exactly, but there's also an energy of distortion with the North Node too, where it can
Mhm.
distort that planetary energy or that sort of representation, or the way that energy kind of presents itself uh, through that. And we've obviously seen how that, you know, his community was not a community, but it was a cult, all that sorts of things too, you know. So I think there's a lot of distortion when the moon is involved because it's so close to us. There's a distortion of self, distortion of whatever that may be. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because the moon being like your internal, very subjective, your subjective reality, whereas
Mm-hmm.
like, reality supposedly is all the same on the outside. But inside, like we all know, we've got different inner worlds going on.
Oh yeah,
But
100%.
then with the North Node Moon conjunction, it's like whatever is in here that's like your reality perception is something that you can definitely project into
Oh yeah,
trying to create that externally, like
yeah,
those desires of the moon. Very
yeah.
interesting.
It's a very literal sort of moon thing, and I think it's just really interesting because like with the luminary specifically conjunct the node, I think it shows so much more of an importance in your life, in kind of what you're gonna be known for. Like a lot of the, and just in general, like any of the planetary conjunctions to the north node is kind of like what you're supposed to be known for, is that sort of development of that specific planetary energy. And when it's the moon and the sun, but more so the moon, it's a lot more personal to like specifically you. Whereas the sun is like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to shine, I'm going to inspire people. Whereas the moon is like, I'm going to, you know, comfort people. I'm going to be that safe space. I'm going to be, you know, that maternal figure, that sort of like that, that figure that I never really had. I'm going to become that for others in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So really interesting. And then, we have Ryan Reynolds with both Sun and Moon. And I swear, like
You
there's
just really
more
like Ryan
coming from
Reynolds.
him.
I don't blame you, but like I'm down with it.
No, it's fascinating to me because like Grimes, yeah, her life and her vibe is very Sun and Moon conjunct Pisces,
Oh yeah,
nonetheless. Pisces North Node. Like you feel that. But then I'm just like so interesting for him. Like what's he gonna do? There's something, like, he's gonna do something besides acting. I'm waiting for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we'll
No,
stop with Ryan Reynolds.
he will. No, it's fine. I love it. I love talking about Ryan Reynolds. He's, chef's kiss. He's great. Um, so yeah. So do you want to move on to Mercury then, or do you want to like kind of gush about Ryan Reynolds some more?
No.
We can do that too.
No, I think we can move on to Mercury. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, Mercury, I find Mercury is not one of the most severe ones to have conjuncting your North Node, except in the sense of like with Mercury being your mind. Okay, I personally find that Mercury conjunct the North Node is easier to deal with, so to speak, than Mercury on the South Node, because you're not like leaving your mind. You're like coming into a higher awareness of your intellect. Edgar Casey has an incredible stellium on his North Node. It's crazy. But, he was known for being literally a psychic, but he had Mercury there. And so he like developed his abilities, his mental faculties, in addition to the, energetic ones as time went on. And so I found that also like with Mercury North Node people, there's this desire, they like kind of enjoy a little bit like being weird or being controversial, because Mercury is also communication and news and broadcasting and social media. So like they want to stir the pot and just do something. It doesn't have to be something big. Like they're not trying to like go to jail, but they want to do enough that people will talk about them. That's like a desire of theirs. Yeah. And they don't care if like they'll have to, stir things up a little bit. Like there's a little bit of that mischievous energy with Mercury North Node, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of us too, not to take it a little bit off track, but because we just got out of a Gemini North Node transit, I think a lot of us saw the development of the mind within our own internal world and kind of the truth of that and the ability to kind of do that. And another thing to think about, similar, I don't know if Donald Trump has his Mercury conjunct his North Node either, but just having it just in Gemini, that's you can see how there was an obsession with communication, an obsession with kind of being heard and kind of just, constantly like kind of tweeting things and kind of just, causing and stirring that pot like you sort of said. And I think Mercury North Node, especially the North Node, because it has to do with development, like you had said, it's something that's not as debilitating or difficult. It can be a little bit too rapid development of the mind in a sense, so it can lead to those sorts of things. But because it is Mercury, and that's obviously, you're gonna have to like look at all the aspects and all the different planetary placements of it. But for the most part, Mercury North Node, I feel it really forces you to develop like discernment and develop just really good communication skills and just really good like ability to kind of like dissect things as well in the more internal aspect of Virgo, of like Mercury, where it's just like, you got to really know how to be on your P's and Q's and stay organized and kind of be able to kind of pivot, because both Mercury in both signs is mutable, so it has to like adapt in things. So I think when it comes to the North Node being with that, there's a lot of adaptation that is kind of just needing to be developed, and that comes from both like within the mind and kind of quick-wittedness in that way, but also within the ability to speak in more of the Gemini Mercurial way, which is like kind of able to kind of gather information and then kind of know how to tweak words or like speak really well. And I think a lot of people, I'd have to do more research to find people that have this Mercury North Node, but a lot of this like I could see as like hypnotism or like NLP, like neuro linguistic programming sort of energy. I could see a lot of that with Mercury North Node. That's what I would definitely recommend. Or kind of like being very conscious with the movement of the mind and the words in that way. And I think that's really definitely an interesting approach to it. So yeah.
Someone actually, Rising Astrology asked about that, like, because Mercury takes the energy of, she said, whoever they meet up with, easier to access North Node possibilities. And you mentioned that, the mutability of Mercury. So yeah, it kind of is. It's like that adaptation of your mind to whatever the energy is. Yoko Ono had a Mercury conjunction in the North Node, which is that energy of like, but controversial, even if like they don't consciously try to be controversial, like there's controversy stirred up around them. They inspire Mercury from other people
Yeah.
talk and communication.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. And like learning foreign languages can be really powerful. Like they can have a gift at it actually,
Yeah.
but really good with that stuff.
And I think it's interesting you brought that up, because when you think about it, with the North Node in contact to any planetary energy, I think a lot of it can also be not just you developing that within yourself, but because that energy is so strong within you and every planetary body, you kind of develop that in other people. You know, like people see that and they're like, okay, I want to go in that direction of whatever planetary energy that is, right? And Mercury is very much talking, so there's a lot of there can be a lot of gossip there, but there can also be a lot of development, as you see with a lot of writers, obviously publishers, public speakers, motivational, like those sorts of things are very much seen by Mercury North Node, because they have a lot of like you said, they develop their own sense of speech, but then they also kind of inspire that around others, and I think it's really, really cool. And I think there's just a lot of power with the Mercury North Node for influence in more of a, actually no, in a very like broad sense too, and also because the North Node does in Vedic astrology represent more of like foreign, like just like literal foreign things. There's a lot of indicators for like foreign language or foreign travel with the Mercury North Node. A little bit different in relation to Jupiter, but it's more of the development of the mind to be able to kind of pivot in those strange environments mentally and be able to kind of talk their way out of anything, you know? So I think that's a lot of that.
Yeah. And encouraging people, like other people with their life story, they open up a conversation about change that needs to happen. Because I also like to think about the fact that Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus, which is like revolutionary change. And so these Mercury people are going to be inspiring conversations that maybe need to happen through their life story too. So yeah, a lot of different dimensions that the Mercury North Node takes, but it's a pretty nice one. I like it, honestly. I like that one.
I like it too. And like you said in the very beginning of Mercury, it was like it's not really something that manifests as difficultly, because I think Mercury not in any sign, but especially with the North Node, it definitely requires that sense of grounding and reality. And I think with the North Node even more so, it requires that. It kind of forces that more like Virgo grounded, let's gather the information and make the best use of it. And I think that's why Mercury North Node doesn't really have the worst sort of development, or sort of like kind of hang-ups, I guess, so yeah.
Great.
Oh, you might want to move on to Venus now?
Yes.
Yes, I'm excited about this one. Okay, I'm so excited about Venus. You can go ahead, because I have a lot to say on this, but you can go ahead.
Okay, so Venus. It's a great one. Venus North Node, I think it's a beautiful placement. A lot of times I find can be kind of controversial life stories too, in terms of like inspiring. Basically, they're attracting a lot of attention from other people. But what they're doing is they're making art of some sort. There's an artistic pursuit, and maybe they'll go more of the relationship route with how they use the Venus, or they'll go more the artistic route. But like so many musicians, like Lorde, Lana Del Rey, Lil Peep, like there's so many, like that's just modern. But there's so many musicians, because what they're here is to deliver art and make things more beautiful. But they also have a desire, like, because they have that yearning for the North Node conjuncting Venus, they have the yearning for the beauty, then they become very good at making things beautiful. They become very good at making art, because like on some level they have this kind of like obsession with beautiful things and things that kind of inspire you in some way. And so they like naturally teach themselves how to be very like artistically gifted and here to deliver some beauty, and they do it in a way that connects with a lot of people. And I love this placement. I don't know.
I do too. I think it has a lot of benefit, because Venus is the smaller benefic, so it is definitely going to exacerbate that. And I think it's going to make I've seen with Venus North Node, it makes that really easy to just kind of, it's a lot more of a positive than like a negative than any of the other ones, because Venus is really, it's it just loves to just love and just positive things, and it just gets more of that, right? Because the North Node, like, it's an insatiable sort of like, I want more of that. um and it's just the more love they exude, the more they develop those artistic skills, the more they develop those kind of aesthetics, or they develop, you know, their ability to kind of just feel good and like self-care and those sorts of things. The more they develop that, the more they're going to attract that, and it's going to keep bringing that. So there's a lot of I see a lot of models that have Venus North Node too,
Yeah.
where they're able to like when they go into a room, they just bring that Venus energy. They bring the love and the joy. And even if like Venus isn't like a crappy sign or like a difficult sign, it's
Yeah.
still going to like bring out the best of its qualities, because it's a North Node, and the North Node always is going to develop the the higher octave of those things. And when you look at the higher octave of Venus being associated with Neptune, you can see that that's why a lot of people are like more artistic, more creative, and there's almost this like sort of like fairy like Neptunian, like really in touch with something higher quality that you see with Venus North Node that you don't really see with a lot of the other ones. Even Neptune North Node, that's Neptune North Node, we'll get there, that's a whole nother different one.
Oh yeah.
But the Venus North Node, it definitely has like kind of an obsession with relationships. Like I have a really good friend who has Venus North Node, and she has just an insatiable desire to have more attention and have more sort of, people coming to her. And because Venus is what you bring to you, and Venus North Node, it's kind of like you don't really have to do much, because what you want, you just have to say you want it as Venus, and Venus and North Node's like, here you go. You know what I mean? And it's just a natural development of your wants and what you actually value. And I think most Venus North Node people have to really develop a truth on like what they want. And once they develop that, they're fine, and they'll get all the blessings that the North Node wants.
Yeah. I do think though it's interesting to look at like the self-love side of Venus versus relationships, because like I feel like with Venus North Node there can be kind of a craving for like love from other people, like just being received well by the people in their industry, by their friends, by everybody, and they get this, and so it's like super, like it can be kind of addicting because they're getting this validation.
Mm-hmm.
And so Venus North Node is like, I don't know, I also like feel like sometimes they can attract not the best intentions from people because they have that natural magnetism, but it's also feeding them in some way to be getting the love, to be getting their Venus reflected back to them, feeds their soul, their purpose, their North Node. And then they can be more apt to like go into, to get caught up in something with relationships of people that like do not have their best intentions in mind. That's kind of the one, like I'm gonna say like one of the biggest shadows, because like they're so lovable, but then they can attract, if they need Venus too much, then they can sometimes.
Because the thing with Venus, with any planetary energy conjunct the North Node, it wants you to develop that planetary energy to the best of its ability. And sometimes Venus, like you said, on the shadow side, can get involved with things just for a sense of vanity or a sense of validation. And I think the relationships for a Venus North Node person, and the relationships and people they surround themselves with, are so pivotal and so important for them to see, like, is this what I think Venus North Node, a lot of the time when they go and they do things, it's almost like, is this what I actually want? Do I want this? Do I want to be around these people? And I think that is like that's what they ultimately have to start asking, instead of just being like, oh, they're adoring me, they're, like they're like feeding me grapes from a vine, like that sort of energy, right? But it's like, do I actually, like, do I want this, and am I providing the most value, or am I just like being objectified and kind of like, just adored for like the outside of me and not the inside of me? You know what I'm saying? With the Venus, because Venus is very much aesthetics, like, so it can just be like the skin and like all of that, which looks great, but then it's like, what about the inside? What about like all of that? So I find Venus North Node can also run into relationships where people only view them, and that's why modeling is an aspect of that, where they only view them as, beautiful for what they can provide, like, I guess physically or like image wise, like as like trophy wife sort of energy. but they can and they have to be very discerning of like what they want, what they value, who they want around them, because looks fade, you know, beauty fades, but like the heart, which is Venus, is something that you have to really develop with the Venus North Node. That I think is way more pivotal and important of the bigger conversation the Venus North Node might not want to have right away, depending on their level of awareness and growth. And I think that's more what Venus North Node really wants, is the love aspect and the self-love and self-value and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another one too is like Venus North Node can be people that have an inclination towards plastic surgery, body modifications, like
Yep.
for the purpose of beauty.
Yep.
Because there's like a desire to have that image of perfection, that Venus.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Someone did ask a question, so I just want to answer it. They said, how would you even decipher the difference between this in terms of sect? I actually really like that you asked that question, not just because, I mean, it does have to do stuff with sect, but I've seen, and I'm going to recommend this book because I'm going to recommend it, but it's The Celestial, the Lunar Nodes. It's a really great book. In it, she talks about like it's not entirely about sect, but it has to do with kind of in a similar vein where the North Node is in relation to the North Nodes, or to the ascendant descendant like axis. So they found through their research, and I forgot what the other person was that they referenced in that book, but there was someone else who did a lot more research than this author did, and they found that the North Node, specifically on like the top half of the chart, but more specifically like the second house, first house, 12th, pretty much everywhere from like second to 8th is kind of like that dividing line. So anything the North Node in like potentially second, like second, first, 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, is going to give like the best results essentially, because there's a lot of that natural associations with the North Node and development of like material things and material reality. Whereas the South Node is more naturally developing, or naturally letting go of more of the personal, internal, like shedding of karma in that sense. So they found that the North Node being in any of those houses kind of brings more naturally those positive manifestations of the North Node, versus like the other end of it where the North Node's on the bottom part of that chart, where it kind of forces the development of where the North Node isn't as comfortable, I guess, is the best way to look at it. But I want to answer that question because it is relevant to what we're kind of talking about. So
Yeah. And also just like if, day versus night chart, if Venus will be stronger, Jupiter will be stronger too.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of that. I was like, oh, yeah. Wow. Did not even think about that part of it. I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that Venus and wow.
No,
wow.
It's okay.
That was probably more so their question than what I answered, but it's fine.
No, I mean what you just said was so interesting, and I'm like, I need to go read that book now.
Yeah, so. I'll send you a picture of it later. But yeah, it's a really good book. She like literally, I don't know if it's either her or the person that she's referencing, but they both have spent like their entire life specifically studying like the lunar nodes, and they use more of like. They use a lot of examples. You would love the book because it uses a lot of celebrity examples too. It's a little bit older, so it uses more celebrity examples from probably like the 80s, 90s. But it's a really great book. So
awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we move on to Mars? Is there anything?
Yeah. I was like, we're just kind of going all over the place. Yeah. We can move on to Mars.
Okay. Mars conjunct the North Node. Maybe unpopular opinion because it's a malefic planet, but I personally love to see this in charts because I'm like, you are coming into your power, like you're coming into your, sometimes like the hustle, like they're going to, because Mars is about like taking that action and direction, like you know what you want, right? Mm-hmm. It's past Venus. You've decided what you want and you're going to go after it. And it's like as their life develops, like they start off maybe being a little bit timid or being a little more passive in terms of their decision making, but then as they go towards the Mars, they're going into not only their empowerment to make decisions, but also their ability to like know what they personally want and then go after it. So it can sometimes, you know, manifest at the more negative Mars sides of like having a lot of conflict. Sometimes there can be conflict in terms of like how you're perceived publicly by people as they feel Mars radiating from you. But just in general, I feel like it's a super empowering thing, and people will have this like ability to come into their own like autonomy in a way. It's like a baby Pluto kind of energy, but Pluto's a way different one. We'll talk about that. But yeah. But yeah, it's empowering. It's also a lot of times people's lives will get like busier. Like there could almost be like a lethargic or bored feeling early in life with the Mars opposing the South Node, or feeling a little directionless, maybe a little Neptunian. But then as time goes on, they're like, I'm doing this, and things are flowing. There's action. So yeah, I actually really like Mars in the North Node.
Yeah. I do too. I haven't seen quite a lot of it, at least personally. A lot of my examples are typically people in my personal life, not necessarily like celebrities, even though I really should reference celebrities. But the Mars North Node, the only celebrity example that came to mind, which doesn't, I don't know how I just pulled this out of the thin air, but it's what's that? Oh my gosh, I should know her name. Simone, not Simone. Why am I saying it wrong? Simon Biles, I think that's her name. The she has Mars North Node conjunction, I believe in Virgo, I want to say. But the thing about that is it's a lot of athletes. A lot of athletes I see have Mars North Node, because the North Node obviously wants you to develop that Martian quality, that assertion of energy, and I've seen like martial artists can definitely do this. It depends on like, that would be more like Mars specifically like in Scorpio and things of that nature, more like a Mars Pluto energy, because like you said, Mars is like a little baby Pluto, so it has like, you know, it's the lower octave of Pluto in that way, so it does have significators that are similar to that. There can be with the Mars North Node, there can definitely be an energy around, not like, because it is malefic, there can be an energy around a lot of anger and like expression of anger, and there and it can almost be, and the thing about like Mars energy in general, and this is probably my Mars Pluto talking, which is probably, but whatever, it's very much like anger can be constructive if channeled in the correct sort of direction, and I think the Mars North Node definitely is learning to develop that, and learning to develop like, okay, I can use this energy productively if I choose to focus it in the right sort of way. Because there's a lot of stuff with both with Mercury and Mars, but more so with Mars, I see a lot more of focus on focus, like a need to focus their energy in very much like a laser pointed sort of way. And then the other part, so there's that part, and then I wanted to talk about, there's obviously a development of like sexuality in that sort of way, and like a kind of almost insatiable sort of masculine energy. And I find that women that have Mars North Node have a little bit of a different time versus men that have Mars North Node, because of just the way that society has raised us in traditional gender roles. And I find that the only person I know personally that has a Mars North Node, he literally works out like almost every single day, and he worked out too much to the point that he actually collapsed. Because of that, and that's very Mars North Node,
It is.
where he was working out, he was like, there's a lot of overworking energy with that if you don't know how to channel it correctly or know how to be okay with it. So there's a lot of things with Mars North Node that I think can definitely be talked about too, more so on the personal level, that I think is really interesting. So
yeah. I think it definitely applies to every individual situation. Mars on the North Node, very different based on everything else going on in the chart, and the individual. And I mean, I do think it would show up different for men and women because of Mars being traditionally associated with masculinity. Pretty sure Beyonce has a Mars North Node.
Pull it up right now.
Yes, please check me.
I got you. She might, honestly. I could feel that. Oh my gosh, hold on. I love that we're like dropping all these celebrity names, because I don't typically. Yeah, she does. And Leo. That's at like 1 degree.
That is fabulous. Like,
yeah,
that is
that's
great.
That's very, yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's a great, like, in the sign of Leo, that's good. Mars, Yeah, that's another thing. Very influenced by the sign and house of the North Node,
Oh yeah.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
So
100%. And I think a lot more of the personal planets I think are more affected by the sign of the North Node than the non-personal planets. I mean, obviously it's going to depend,
mhm.
but because I think that when we get into the outer planets, there is a lot more of like a quote generational sort of longer term with that. So I think when the South Node, or not the South Node, the personal planets conjunct the North Node is a lot more about like the personal development, like it's literally personal planet. It's like very much centered around you and your own assertion or use of whatever that energy is, whether it's the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars. But then as you move out, I think it has more of like a kind of a bigger scope where it starts becoming a little bit more on the sociological side, more of the kind of less of the like development of like your own connection to that energy, more so like it was with like we talked about with Mercury specifically, and more of like the everyone around you is kind of connected to the energy more. And I find that more with the outer planets. It's more of a, you see it more around you and you're kind of more of a catalyst for that energy versus like a development within yourself of how best to utilize that energy. You see both, but I think that's just kind of what I've noticed too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely makes sense. Yeah. Mars in the North Node is definitely an interesting one, but I agree with it being more personal, obviously being a personal planet,
Yeah.
and less something that everyone's experiencing. Yeah. Last example I'll get for Mars North Node. I'm pretty positive I have it right in my head, but Einstein.
Does he really?
The ramping up energy of like his life. Like you see it like how you could feel from just his story, even pictures of him, maybe not everybody, but I feel like you can feel his excitement as he started to realize like I am onto something.
Yeah.
And he's just like building up, and then finally like he just is, like here, delivered it in the world. But it was this empowerment because he hadn't ever seen himself as particularly someone with gifts in that way.
Yeah.
And then it's the empowerment of Mars, but then things are building and it's like exciting, and then he came to these realizations that changed science for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty cool.
So he does have that, but the thing that's really interesting about that is he has his Mars is in Capricorn, and at like the 26th degree of Capricorn. And then his North Node's at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So they're like, it's kind of like that merging, which I think is so interesting. When you brought that up, I'm like, that's super interesting because it's a movement from the, the very Capricorn, very like serious, and especially because it's time based too. It was like a lot of study, a lot of hard work. And then it ended up changing literally society and science and all of those things, which is more of the Aquarian aspect of it. So it has that aspect of the Uranus, Saturn sort of energy with it too, with that specific example of Albert Einstein.
Yeah, no, that's such a good example too, because his Mars was exalted then in Capricorn.
Yep.
That's perfect. He got the exalted Mars, and then it changed society. Saturn, Uranus energy. Very cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love
that.
I love that you like know a lot. I really, a lot of the reason why I reached out to you specifically for this whole conversation was because a lot of the examples you have that you can just kind of pull out from everywhere was just like all these like different celebrities and different people that have lived throughout history that I think is really, really cool. And I love that about you because it's just I love it. I just love it. It's just so great. And I was like, I could never keep all those in my head. I have so many charts in my head already. I could never I don't know how you do it, but
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, certain ones just stick. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
okay. Do you want to move on to the outer planets now?
Yes.
Okay. So I have, as you know already, I have notes on like specifically when the outer planets were conjunct and kind of around the time that they do conjunct. So with the North Node and Jupiter, they conjunct around every 7 years. So it's like a cycle, right, with the North Node Jupiter. And then it happens about every 82 months, if you want to get like specific. The most prominent ones that were really kind of happened was October of 1994 and August of 2001. And then the next ones are February 2009, June 2016, and then May 2023. So it's every time, it's like, it's every 7 years pretty much for the most part. And the next one we're going to have is May 2023, which is with Taurus. I believe it's either Taurus or like the late degrees of Aries. But the thing about that I think is really interesting about the North Node Jupiter is it's always kind of been a development of philosophy, obviously, of religion, of kind of like having more of like experiences that you can kind of deduce and kind of re-reference back with Jupiter, because Jupiter's like perceivable reality, and it kind of brings a lot more of a need to explore all of the kind of religions or all of the different ways that Jupiter can manifest. It's a lot more of the experiential sort of moments with the Jupiter North Node, and a lot of like really large development in hope and faith and religion and kind of that. And maybe even like a development of like a new sort of like a new sort of religion, or like kind of like stepping into like a new because the North Node is strange, right? It's different, it's unique, and then Jupiter is like our belief systems in that sense. And I think this is more so what I'm watching with people that have the North Node in Scorpio and Jupiter in Scorpio and Saturn in Pisces. I'm watching them because I think there's a lot of development for them to really step into creating a new sort of religious relationship, or religious sort of faith with the North Node Jupiter, specifically in Scorpio, which was like around 94, I think. Yeah, October of 94. So was when it was exact. So so I think that's at least what I want to say on that. What have you seen really with the North Node Jupiter? What would you like to kind of add to that?
Well, North Node Jupiter is interesting because now we're into outer planets, which are considered by most to be more karmic. So it's like the Jupiter North Node would bring in basically like this good fortune that you've almost like accumulated for yourself. And so I don't know, I'm always careful talking about the whole karma thing because I don't know, it gets kind of hairy sometimes with like what lifetime it came from. I kind of see it more as like you do good things and you'll see it like big in a big way later in your life. So lots of success, opportunities coming your way, generally really well liked. But it's interesting because what you said about religion, like I found Jupiter North Node people can either be like so like later like find themselves so out there, like Madonna has a Jupiter and North Node conjunction, I think. They're just so big, their life is big. Or they can go the more like spiritual route and do like an austere, do like kind of a almost more the silent retreat into the spiritual side of the Jupiterian energy.
Yeah.
So
and that's I would see that more as like she does have a Jupiter North Node, Madonna. It's in Libra. It's pretty close, yeah. And I think it's with the Jupiter North Node too. It is in development, like I said, like you hit on about religion and faith and things like that. And there is a lot of aspects of it of when Jupiter hits the North Node. It's just like a really like not easy time, but it's like a little bit easier for you to kind of navigate some things just because it's less like the sun, where the sun is just like it's naturally going to happen. Jupiter is like you have to actually believe it happens. And I think with the Jupiter North Node, or rather believe it can happen. And with Jupiter the North Node, it's like you have to like, you're going to have a life full of like developing belief and developing like, can I do this? And then the universe is like, yeah, you can, here you go. And then you're like, okay, cool. Like I can do this. Let's keep going, you know? And I think there's a lot of that. The universe wants you to have a sense of faith and belief and purpose too. Because a lot of people, when they talk about Jupiter, they sometimes fail to mention it has to do with purpose and purposeful sort of like the understanding of what purpose is, and kind of like more of the mental, like, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of, you know, this movement or this traveling or whatever, you know? And Jupiter wants you to have faith in that process, which I think is really, really cool. With the Jupiter
Yeah.
North Node. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's definitely the spiritual quality, the spiritual side to it as well, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like blessings on your journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty good one.
Yeah.
Um,
You want to move into Saturn?
yeah, I feel like you should start with Saturn. 'Cause
Okay, fine. That's cool. I'm fine with that. So the North Node conjunct Saturn around every 11 years or 137 months, if you're being that particular. The last one was January 1991, which was in Capricorn. And then it was in June 2002, which I think is Gemini, I want to say, if I remember correctly. And then September 2013, and then it's going to happen again in April 2025, which will be Saturn North Node in Pisces, which I think is going to be that's going to be a really interesting time to think about.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's a lot of with the Saturn North Node. This is a life. It's similar to the Mars part, where, you know, it's like needing to like kind of like develop self-assertion and develop energy and focus. But I think with we will be talking about Chiron too, by the way, just to answer your question. But we will with the Saturn North Node, it's a development of authority and your own inner authority. And this can be a lot of Saturn North Node can definitely be an energy of like really trusting time. So similar to like what we talked about with Jupiter just before this, where it's like a development of that faith and that belief and that sort of like purpose. Saturn is kind of like Jupiter and Saturn both have aspects of trust to them, but Saturn North Node, I find, has a lot of like trusting time and trusting that time is on your side, and not necessarily on like the like more Jupiterian, like, you know, if I just, you know, like more of just like the faith kind of open-ended stuff. This is more of like the very serious, right? Because it's Saturn, it's very much like I have to put in this work, and I'm trusting that in the end this will develop into something larger. And I think it definitely has an aspect of development of time, development of self-authority. And with Saturn North Node, I can speak for myself. When you go through your Saturn return as a Saturn North Node person, or just in general, it definitely unlocks a lot of that self-trust, and kind of you get to see a lot of how the Saturn is of benefit when you have when you've gone through your Saturn return and you've kind of really crystallize yourself. And I think Saturn North Node has a lot to do with that act of crystallization, and the act of knowing that it's okay to harden and it's okay to be solid and build something. So yeah, that's a lot of what I would say, at least a little bit of that, without going too much on a tangent. But yeah, that's what I would say on the Saturn North Node. So what have you seen, or what do you think about that energy?
Yeah, I think it's great that you mentioned the Saturn return as being important, because I feel like Saturn return's already very activating for the nodal journey, but then when it's obviously conjuncting your North Node, where Saturn is huge for kind of setting you on your path. But also with Saturn North Node, I feel like there is sometimes this like gotta like get real thing, where like you have to kind of ground too, and like be in, because like Saturn manifestation, physical world, it's like be here, you know, take care of, pay the bills, like take care of that kind of stuff, but also recognize like what you want to do in the world. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's like having come up from a perspective of like, you know, oh, I'm like this spiritual being, which like, yes, true. Yeah. But like, what are you going to do in the world? And there is something you're supposed to do. Like Saturn's like, you're working towards something. Like you are putting in time and effort to do something that's part of your destiny. You just have to kind of, trust me. I like that you mentioned trust. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too with Saturn, I've found is because Saturn is kind of opposite by sign to opposite by sign to the sun and the moon. I think this is another interesting aspect of it as it relates to the nodes, because the lunar nodes are most notably connected to eclipses that are the sun and moon. So I think this is a little bit more of a real manifestation of like a lot of discomfort, just because the nodes aren't traditionally associated with Saturn. They're more associated with the luminaries, which are not friends of Saturn. Saturn is very much the restrictor, the limits, right? It's what you can see, and it's like making something very tangible. And having a Capricorn North Node myself, I can talk about how, just like you said, it's kind of like, okay, you got to do the bills, you got to be here in the physical, and it's almost like there's value in being physical, and it's a matter of developing that tangible physical something. A lot of Saturn North Node people can definitely very easily develop businesses, or like to develop like corporations, or like something that's like stands the test of time, right? Saturn, like they like to build. Yeah. And there is also a difficult relationship with the father with Saturn North Node, I've seen, just because of there might be some difficulty with understanding how authoritative or authority works until they go through their Saturn return and realize their own sense of authority, and that's like a whole autonomous thing. But yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
What just happened?
Literally my dad. That is so funny. That is so funny. That is absolutely hilarious. Wow. That was like literally like on cue. Hold on. Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's really funny.
I know. That's honestly like crazy that just happened. And now my lighting's all weird.
That was so strange.
It is what it is.
But
yeah.
Anywho,
are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I was just like, oh, that's really strange. Because it was funny, because the last time I did a live, I could like tell when my mom was gonna call. It was like, I can just tell, because I have South Node Cancer, so I can just tell. But then my dad never calls, so that's why I'm like, what the So that was weird. But and especially because we were literally talking about that. So that's so strange.
Like you just said that, yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
So go ahead. You can go ahead, and I mean, if you have anything else to say about Saturn, we can keep talking about that, or we can move on to Uranus.
I don't know. I think I just have to like just deal with how my lighting looks now. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I think we pretty much got it with Saturn coming into your own authority. Also, like I think there is some energy of like needing to, or it being good to like accept any fear and anxiety that come up, like that kind of manifestation of Saturn. Yeah. And create gentleness for that, with the
yeah. There's also
activate the lunar energy still, and allow for that, because Saturn can bring that too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think because with the lunar energy, it's more of the development of like a family, and development of like that feminine sort of like, I will be your safe space, whereas Saturn is more of the development of that outer authority for people, that sort of like, I've created a home for you, or I've created, I can provide for you in a physical sense. I think is a lot with Saturn in the North Node. It's kind of stepping into that you can't just provide for someone in the sense of the emotional lunar quality, which is more of the Moon North Node, but it's like you can actually provide for them in a very physical, tangible way, and that's actually more of a value to you, to learn how to do that, and to say, I'm going to provide I'm going to do work for you, I'm going to build this business for you, I'm going to help you build your empire, whatever it might be, versus like, I'm going to cook for you, and I'm going to make you feel soft, and there's different ways about it that I think is really interesting.
Well, it's next.
Yeah, I do. I was like, well, this is going to be one for a while, but it's okay. You can go. Honestly, you are welcome to take the lead on this one, because I will clearly talk a lot about this one. But it's the Uranus North Node, so you can go ahead and talk, and then I'll let you know the dates and stuff first, and then I'll hand the proverbial mic to you. So Uranus North Node. Oh my gosh, where are my notes? Oh my gosh. So the Uranus. Oh my gosh! Wow, I have so many notes that I lost it. Hold on. Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay, there I am. So Uranus North Node happens around every 16 years, a conjunction. So it's pretty rare. And the last time it happened was November 1991 and then April 2007. And the next time it's going to happen this year, August 2022. And in 91 it was in Capricorn, 2007 it was in Pisces, and 2022 this year in a couple months it will be in Taurus. So yeah, go ahead, because this is the one we've like wanted to talk about this whole time, so it's gonna be fun. So go ahead.
Yeah. So okay, Uranus conjunct North Node. The whole point of Uranus is that you can't know what it is or what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. It comes to kind of break free of the Saturn, but Uranus on either node adds like a complete unexpected undercurrent and like purpose to the life. Like you're not supposed to know what's going to happen. And so okay, so I'm just going to start actually with some examples of this because I do think that's actually kind of helpful. Like so many politicians had Uranus North Node, which I found to be really interesting. But then we also have like Edgar Allan Poe had the Uranus North Node, which we talked about. But also like Ram Dass had this. And I think it also is interesting, like really interesting to pay attention to Uranus transits to your natal Uranus when you have the conjunction to your North Node, because it's like big stuff will happen then too. Like that was kind of like Ram Dass when he started doing his whole like LSD stuff. Like that was when he was having the, I believe, opposition on his nodes of the Uranus. But anyways, it's about like something, almost like a life story that's going to bring in something very controversial, like the Mercury, the higher octave of Mercury, that's here to change things permanently, which can be shocking. It is shocking, that's the point. And so you don't know exactly how it's going to manifest. And I feel like the sign and house position, specifically the house of the nodes, when there's a conjunction to Uranus, will kind of give you more insight on like how it's going to show up. But super wild card, like the wild card of the conjunctions. Yeah.
Honestly, I can definitely speak for it because I have it. So, and I think this was, like I said, one of the reasons why I reached out to you specifically, because this was something that I've never heard other astrologers really speak about, at least like very specifically. And I think there's a lot of importance with it, like you had said, with kind of this faded, sort of like really even more so crazy energy than what it's used to. And I found, obviously I'm very biased with this energy because I have it, but I found that there is it's similar to like you had said about when we first started, about how people that are born under eclipses kind of have that energy of like just kind of chaos in a sense, and it's also similar to Uranus. With me, and I've had that Uranus North Node, it's very much like you can't really know what's going to happen, and it's just going to kind of go. And I've seen that Uranus North Node for myself has been something where I've always tried. It's really strange. It's the craziest thing. This is obviously a very personal thing to me, where whenever I've developed something and I'm like, this is the direction I'm going to go, I'm like, yes, this is my plan. Literally, Uranus is like, nope, guess what? Nope. As soon as I like lay the groundwork and I have like a plan, it's like, nope, psych. And it like just completely takes me in a whole other direction, which I think is really interesting in the sense of like, the Uranian like randomness quality of it and kind of unpredictable. And then when I was younger, and even still now, and this is more so because my conjunction's in Capricorn, so it has to do with like time and all that stuff. But I always was wondering kind of like how everything would connect. And I was like, what is the purpose of what I'm doing? And it was more of the mental plane. Like I was trying to connect everything within my mind. With the Uranus North Node. And I do find there's one other astrologer that I don't know personally, but his name's Kent Bai. He has a Uranus North Node conjunction in Gemini. And he actually just loves astrology, obviously, and loves AI. And he's developed a lot of those things with the Uranus North Node.
Yeah.
And the thing about Uranus is a lot of fascination. a lot of fascination energy, and what fascinates you and what interests you and what's quirky and weird and different, you just go towards, and you're just obsessed with like new thought and development of new thought. And it's one of the energies I've always like, I used to really dislike in my chart, but now that I've gone through or am going through my Saturn return, I'm beginning to really appreciate the chaos I went through that like developed a sort of a bigger picture that I wasn't aware of. Because Uranus always works in like it breaks the resistance in the quickest way possible, so that you can develop this. It like really, it like speeds up your developmental process, like beyond like tenfold. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there's like an enlightening quality to it too. Like there's spiritual awakenings too.
Yeah, and it's almost because Uranus is also the higher mind. I found that it's almost like there's like an overly rapid development of the higher mind, to the point that it like is hard to keep up with the speed that your brain's going. Like a lot of like quantum thought is kind of like associated with this, like a development of quantum thought, or like AI computing, or like kind of that sort of way of thought. And I've slowly been able to kind of re-examine that and kind of develop that. But I think also Uranus North Node has a way of fracturing. I love Uranus energy. I can talk. I'm not gonna like. I'm trying to keep this brief, because I don't want to like talk about this way too long. But Uranus North Node definitely has like a fraction energy, where there's a lot of fractals and like kind of splitting of yourself, and needing to kind of like reclaim that through a mental part of it. Versus like if it was Neptune, it would be more of like a spiritual aspect of it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've always been fascinated by my Uranus North Node conjunction, which is very Uranus North Node conjunction.
Yeah. I know. It's like hard because you can't know. That's the point. But it's definitely an exciting energy for sure. Mm-hmm. Unexpected changes in your path also.
Yeah. A lot of technology too. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love it.
Nice.
So do you have anything else you want to add about this one with the Uranus North Node?
No, I think we kind of got to it. Shout out to Uranus, yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
We love Uranus. Uranus is my fave. It's my baby. Okay, yeah, then we can move on to Neptune if you want.
Yeah, Neptune is super interesting. Neptune, okay, obviously all of them can show up very different ways. I like the example that's really fresh for me, because I've been working with her chart and actually planning on putting out like a full-length reading and a short reading for her. But Sylvia Plath, Neptune conjunct North Node in Pisces. And that's one example of how like there's this almost like incredible artistic genius thing that kind of overtakes people as they head into Pisces energy, but they're really or they head into Neptune energy. So it can be very, very dreamy, very, very spiritual, artistic, and like these basically like intuitive, kind of this channeling energy starts to happen. So very creative, but it can also be very confusing. Neptune North Node, because that's the whole point of Neptune, is like what's going on, we don't know. It's literally another universe, another realm. And so there can be kind of that like confusion that can feel like it can really like ramp up and overtake. So I think Neptune, North Node, like, I don't know, there should be, if you know about your chart, you know you have it, like awareness of grounding can be really helpful. And paying attention to your mental state, like tracking it, maybe having some sort of schedule. I'm almost seeing it as like there's so much Pisces pulling you. You got to do some Virgo with the Neptune.
Yeah.
Got to do some Virgo. Like honestly, ground, get like a structured daily life, and keep part of you here through something. Because but it can also be an energy of other people really idealizing you, like you becoming the mirage, the image of what people want to see you as. So like Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm pretty sure has this. It's that like everybody sees him, but do they see him, or do they see almost the collective archetype of what he's become and how people want to perceive him to be? Like, who knows who he is really?
Yeah,
that's Neptune North Node.
Facts.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good example, because I think that there is a lot of projection involved with the Uranus or with the Neptune North Node. Yeah, he does. He has a Neptune North Node conjunction in Sag.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, he does in DiCaprio. Yeah, it's a really disoriented energy, similar to Uranus, but Neptune's a little bit different. Neptune, it's funny because this is one I like really forgot about, but that it happens every 17 years or so. October 91, May 2008, and January 2025, and then it happened in Capricorn, Aquarius, and then it's going to happen in Pisces in 2025. But with the Neptune North Node, it is, like you had said, like a very Piscean energy, where it's almost like it does have another aspect of faith to it, but it's not like the Jupiter aspect of faith, where it's like, I've seen other people do this, because Neptune is very different. It's something that we haven't, we're not able to see with our naked eye, so it's something that we just have to trust that we're doing, and like just kind of give it up and kind of just develop it in a different sort of way, and just kind of just go with the flow, but don't get lost in that flow, don't just lose yourself, but the thing that I found with Neptune North Node, it does have a way of it where it's Neptune, it wants you to develop creativity. It wants you to develop like a sense of a very strong intuition. And sometimes developing that intuition doesn't come from all the time doing like physical, tangible work, even though it is important to have that grounding, like without a doubt with this combination. But it's kind of like Neptune is only something that you can experience on like a very visceral, feeling-based, intuitive, your own level. And so when you have Neptune North Node, it's almost like you have to lose yourself to find yourself sometimes with that. And I find that with a lot of the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, that is like a repeating theme of like you have to lose yourself to find yourself throughout those things. And with the North Node, it's a development of like a development of like an acceptance of that loss of the old self, right? With the South Node involved, this aspect in the North Node. But then also knowing that you can come into something that's entirely new, entirely different. And with all of the outer planets, but most notably Neptune, it becomes an impact on the collective that is much larger than you could imagine, because it's Neptune, right? And because it's that like very like media and like being like put in front of like cameras and those sort of things, glamour, a lot of that. There can be, at a younger age with Neptune North Node, there can definitely be some sort of deception, or whether it comes from them or comes from someone else. So there's a lot of need to discern when someone's being deceptive using intuitive sort of skills. I wouldn't be surprised if people that have Neptune North Node could develop, and this is more so for the Neptune North Node and Capricorn people, but develop like a new like sort of what's the word? Like a new drug, or a new sort of like something that alters your consciousness and brings you to a whole different way of thought. And this is very much, Neptune can be associated with like VR, but it's more Uranus. So I see that a lot with Neptune. And I'm just excited for Saturn to go into Pisces. Like I really am not, but I am, because it's going to bring up those energies, and it's going to activate that Neptune North Node people that have it in Capricorn. So it's going to bring out that development. So yeah, and it's similar to the Venus, but it's more of like the bigger scale of it,
Yeah, and being like the idealized thing.
Totally. Yeah, being like the hot and popular thing. People don't know why, and they're just like, I'm just projecting all my subconscious onto you, and you're like, thanks,
No, yeah, it's like even like with Leonardo DiCaprio and Sylvia Plath being so different, they both have that. Like they have become an icon, more of like than a human being with nuance and all the intricacies. Like they have become the vision of something.
Yep.
Very Neptune North Node. So
Yeah. And I think with all the outer planets conjunct the North Node, but definitely Neptune, it's almost like don't get lost in like the sense of like losing yourself to what people are idealizing you for, with Neptune North Node. Because you definitely have that idolization, but don't get so like recognize that you're kind of more of a vessel with the Neptune North Node, and people are just able to kind of get their healing of their subconscious through that image of the Neptune North Node, depending on obviously what else it's doing. But and seeing that, I think is not getting too lost in spirituality. Like having a very grounded thing, which is very important for any Neptune person to get in touch with Virgo and Saturn and stuff. So
yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Neptune.
Are we going on to Pluto now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So Pluto happens about every 16 years. It happened in February 94 and November 2010. It's going to happen again November 2027, which will be in Aquarius. And there was one in 94 that was in Scorpio. There was also one in Libra in 97, which was weird because it was like this weird, like it happened on like the cusp of Scorpio and Libra, so that was strange. And then Capricorn, obviously November 2010. November 2027 is Aquarius, and then so those are the time frames for those. So what do you think of this one? Because this one's a little interesting, North Node Pluto.
Yeah. It's a hard one. It is a challenging one. Like definitely going into, Pluto's death, destruction, transformation, rebirth, the underworld, literally like Hades, and that's the energy you're heading into. So you're here, there's monumental changes to be made, but it's through the Phoenix archetype. It's through literally loss, whether it's internal or external, being a theme of that which you were obsessively clinging to is then taken away, and you have to figure out what's left of me and realize that there is something left of you, and then rebuild yourself as something completely new, but still the same being. It's super Pluto, but
yeah, it is
a trip for sure.
It is a trip, and I think with the North Node Pluto, it does. It's interesting now because this isn't the exact same, obviously, but we have the South Node in Scorpio at the moment, so there's a lot of us seeing similar themes of that sort of starting and revving up in that sense. And the North Node, I don't know why we didn't mention this, or I didn't mention this earlier, about the South Node, North Node being, the South Node is kind of like the worst ways, not the worst way, I guess the worst ways or the lower evolved ways of using that energy versus the North Node is like the higher evolved version of that energy. And I think when the North Node is with Pluto, this is similar to Mars, because of course Mars is the lower octave of this. It's very empowering, but to the nth degree, where it's almost it's going to keep giving you power, keep giving you influence, but it might surround you with corruption. It might surround you with those things, and it might ask you to say, how can I work within this? How can I work within a corrupt system? Or how can I break this apart to make something better, right? How can I take this influence or this power that I have and really transform it into something morally more on the powerful side? Because North Node Pluto really wants people to really develop a sense of control of their own inner beast and inner darkness in that sense, and know not to misuse that power influence or misuse kind of the power Pluto gives them. And there can be, I feel like I'm going to pull up I don't typically pull up celebrities, but I'm going to, because I have a feeling, I think Bruce Lee has something. Bruce Lee has either a Mars Pluto conjunction, or he has Pluto North Node. He actually has. No, he doesn't. He does not. Oh, he has Mars Pluto. He has Mars and Scorpio. But there's someone I know that has, not know, but I think there's someone that has a Pluto North Node that kind of gives me the energy of like martial art in that sense, or like really like focused energy, and like being able to like really use that energy in its own sort of way. And I think that's more me tapping like Mars and Scorpio, personally. But I see a lot of really good psychologists with this. Good, good like really deep depth psychology, and think is a lot of associations with Pluto North Node. Just like owning your power and being like okay seeing the darker parts of yourself and others, I think is a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Pluto's all about trying to find the truth and wanting to get to the bottom of things. Yeah, so definitely a powerful one, but it could be really heavy experiences. Marilyn Monroe is one of my favorite.
There you go. See, you have them on deck. I love it.
I know. It's like, honestly, like just doing those little readings on TikTok like has helped me, because all of those, like those charts will always be like in my head. I see them. And Marilyn had such a challenging chart already. There was so much, there was a strong thing with Saturn actually in Scorpio and the IC going on. Like a lot of really hard stuff that was reinforcing the Pluto energy, but it's like she came here and she was like monumental and like lived this really big life, but like at what cost? She had to deal with like the personal plutonic topics like in her life all the time. But also that like truth versus almost being persuaded of something. It's almost like it's almost like she was gaslit to believe she had a perfect life too, you know, because she knew that it was not right, and then other people were telling her that it was literally like the ideal life and the ideal situation. But that deception and manipulation of Pluto, I feel like comes out really strong. Look at her story.
I think so too, and I think it's a lot of that, and people. There is also an aspect of Pluto North Node that I think has a lot to do with your power being taken away from you. And I think this is a lot of things with all the outers. But with Pluto, it's like very much like your power is taken away from you by some sort of external factor or something. And you have to kind of like reclaim that in whatever way that you can with Pluto, by really digging deep and knowing that you're worthy of being empowered or being strong, or, honoring that darkness or addressing that darkness too. And I think there's a lot of that. A lot of Pluto North Node I feel like is like just living like kind of like a mafia life, but like learning how to like this is like a really specific, this happens sometimes where you're like really randomly specific things, but it's like Pluto North Node is like I was born into like a mafia life, or I had to like develop that, or I like became like a very empowered mafia leader. But then I had to like kind of like turn that into like maybe because I just looked at Marilyn Monroe's chart, but it's like turn that into like a non-for-profit, or find a way to utilize that power in a different, more empowered way, right? And stepping into that leadership role that Pluto wants, with using darkness, but also being able to like turn into light, which is what Pluto eventually wants you to own, So, and then the last one we're going to talk about is Chiron. And then we're going to talk about the upcoming Uranus North Node conjunction, and I think then we're like done. I'm happy we didn't do South Node, because this would have taken like
oh my god, I'm glad we didn't too. Well, do you have dates for Chiron?
Yeah, I do,
Oh, perfect.
Chiron happens. So Chiron's orbit, I'm sure you know, is like really like kind of random. It spends different times in different constellations, so it's not really like a perfectly cyclical thing. So it happens around every 12 to 16 years between that time frame. So the last time it happened was August of 2008. Before that, it was August of 1996, and the next time it will be in February 2024. It was in 1991. It was in Capricorn. 2008, it was in Aquarius, and 2025, it will be in Pisces. So it's it's a lot of. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that was wrong. I just read I read Neptune. Oh, 96 was Libra, 2008 was Aquarius, 2024 will be Aries. I was like, why would it be in Pisces?
Yeah, I know. I heard that last one too, and I was like, wait.
Yeah, I was like, hold
Aries.
up. Yeah, so
Aries.
Libra, Aquarius, and then it will be in Aries in February 2024. So in like about a year, and in like 2 years. 2 years, yeah. So this one's always interesting. I feel like you have like a interesting connection to Chiron. I don't know why. I feel like it's like kind of, is it prominent in your chart? Because I like feel that from you.
Yeah, it's in an angular house.
Okay.
So,
okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And aspect in a lot of my placements, so it's pretty prominent. Both Lilith and Chiron are prominent in my chart.
Okay, yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I feel like I'm really connected to, I don't know, Chiron and other people's charts.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, like whenever I see it, especially if I see it conjuncting either luminary or the North Node, that's really, really powerful for me. It's kind of like sweet in a way that's hard for me to explain with words because it's hard, and they're gonna have to face like their deepest pain, and it all starts with the self-healing and awareness, and like it's like gentleness. Like there's something so compassionate that needs to happen with like working through Chiron things, and so when it's on your North Node, like you're going to have to face that, whatever it is, and what you like, how you choose to face it, what you choose to do with it. That's up to you, but facing your own wounding very deeply, but then also ultimately like healing purpose to become a healer for others in some capacity is like totally like just really straightforward there, you know, and as they go through their own deep healing, then they will become the healer. And so just like with the other outer planet transits we've been talking about, like Chiron return will be so important if you have Chiron on your North Node, like that's so beautiful. And being a healer doesn't mean like you're literally, you know, energetically healing people. It's through the house. It's through the position of your North Node ruler, but it's also through your craft. So it can be your writing, it can be your art, it can be literally it can be being a doctor or someone in even like holistic medicine. That's a very literal interpretation, but it's just about delivering healing to the world as being a part of your purpose. And I just think it's sweet that so let's do that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I think I definitely agree with you with Chiron. I think there's a lot of healing aspects to it, and I didn't even recognize how the Chiron return would be so much more prominent for a North Node Chiron person, because I think it is such a healing energy, but it's a matter of like owning your wounds, owning that, and almost sharing that in a sense. And it's because the North Node wants you to develop like the higher aspects of whatever planet it's touching. It's going to focus way more on the healing part of it than the wounded part of it. You know, it's going to focus way more on the like, I'm going to become a healer. I'm going to heal people through, you know, healing myself, right? And I think the Chiron North Node has a lot of like holistic medicine sort of energy to it. I can definitely feel that. I think there's a lot of like sort of like understanding your energetic system, your pain points, your trauma, and being able to heal people through that and through what you've learned through going through your own struggles and through your own difficulties. Like, for example, not that this is one of the combinations, but it actually would be like forever ago, but like North Node in Taurus, conjunct Chiron in Taurus would be someone that would like go and like really go through their, you know, financial struggles in that way. And then be able to like really, really help people manage their finances or help them understand their finances, or more so like figure out their limiting beliefs around finances in that way, you know. And I think North Node Chiron has a lot to do with healing others through like whatever Chiron's doing, right? And the most prominent one I see, of course, is going to be North Node with Libra with Chiron, because that's the most recent one, or the like not most recent one, but one of the most recent ones, and it's a lot of like karmic relationships, you know. But obviously, you have to look through the whole chart to see that. So, yeah, I like Chiron. I wish I had my Chiron return so I could like, you know, talk more on Chiron energy on a more like literal level. But I really like it. I really do. Yeah, it's great.
It's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to dive into the transit coming up of the Uranus or
Yeah.
Do you have any other planetary things you want to focus on?
No, I think that's all of them. We went through everything, which is crazy. No, I think honestly we should just talk about the North Node Uranus conjunction that we're going through and where the nodes are currently at for the next 16 months, and kind of talk about that for a little bit, and then just kind of end it there. And I think that'll kind of be. I think that should be. That's more than enough because we've been doing this for almost about 2 hours now. But yeah. So what do you feel is going to kind of happen around? Well, what do you see at least in relation to the North Node Uranus conjunction in what is it, August? I think August of this year. Yeah.
Yeah, the summer. I mean, definitely, like, with it being Taurus, Scorpio nodes now, Uranus, the transformations that are coming in terms of, the financial system, like, global. There's a lot of financial stuff going on with the Taurus energy and how that's transforming. Also, like, some stuff with technology and the internet. I'm not sure exactly how I feel like that's going to take place, but it's starting to align. Like, when they conjunct, I think the focus is going to be very strongly on social issues and justice, and less about politics. I mean, I know they're related, but less about, the more, like, literal things that are going on, and more about, like, why is this the way that it is? Who's it serving? And getting really real with that, getting the Scorpio South Node release, and the focus kind of changing more towards I don't want to say humanitarian focus, but more real about the human side of things, not the business government side of things.
Yeah.
And then they'll kind of align, and then some stuff's gonna go down, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're definitely going to see a precursor of it during the eclipses at the end of April and beginning of May. I think we're definitely going to see that because that's when we're going to have that first eclipse period on that, not the first eclipse, but the first full eclipse period on that nodal axis there. And I think obviously you hit it on the nose with the whole financial aspect of it, kind of political aspect of it changing, humanitarian. I definitely see that. I see a lot of food resources too. Like a change in food resources, or like a lot more conversations of UBI, universal basic income, like kind of like that sort of providing of just like everyone to have like equal resources and equal footing in that way. I think a lot of that is potential to happen. There's a lot of like different relationships with food. I think a lot more people are going to be moving more towards like veganism and sort of like more a different sort of mental approach to food. There might be some movement towards, like maybe like not food factories, but like meat factories just kind of like aren't able to function in a sense, or more like digital, like 3D printed meat. Like that's like really specific, but that's more Uranus and Taurus. But I think it's gonna definitely be a wake up call for our own resources, how we use our resources, how the global system uses resources, and our Earth in general. I think with what happened during COVID when we were all in quarantine, we saw how quickly the Earth could actually heal if we were just to stop. And I think that has a lot to kind of, because of everything that happened in 2020, we're able to kind of see a lot of how both the upsides and downsides of technology, but also the upsides and downsides of just pausing our human, nature. I think so. There's a lot of that I see, and I think it's gonna be interesting, and I'm obviously excited for it because I'm just waiting to see everyone else have chaotic misses, and I'm just gonna be like, hey, what's up? This is my life all the time. You know what I mean? Like I'm just really excited for it. Just because I want to see how drastic it'll change, because Uranus just like will just like break it, just to be like there's so much pressure in a system and it's just like
yeah, definitely. So pretty exciting stuff coming up. We'll see
we will I am very, very excited. I think it's going to be a really interesting year for a lot of people. This was a lot, but this was so much fun, Taryn. This was like, I I just love talking astrology. I love talking to you too. You're just great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what else is there? I don't think there's anything else really to talk about. Well, do you have anything that you want to talk about or plug or whatever? Or anything? Or wait, hold on. Anything that you want to plug or talk about or anything before we kind of like closing remarks or anything you want to like kind of close with the planetary context of the nodes or anything?
No, I think we covered all the big stuff, everything that's important. And yeah, where are you you're gonna share this somewhere?
Yeah, so it's gonna go on my feed, but then I'll send it to you as well, so you can have it. I think I should be able to send you like the actual video. I don't know if you can post it on your feed, but I'll look to see what I can. I'll do Uranus things and see what I can do with the technology to send it over to you. But yeah, it'll be on my feed, my story thing, and then I think I can give it to you somewhere along those lines. And then I think there's a way for me to like upload it to YouTube or something along those lines. I can figure it out. I'll just like spread it Uranian everywhere. But yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting time, and I'm really happy that we had this conversation because you're one of those people that I've never heard another astrologer really talk about the nodes, at least on TikTok. You know, most as prominent as you do, and I'm just like, yes, God, it's great. You know, yeah, I think that's really it. I think I don't really have anything else to speak on. Yeah, I think that's everything. So yeah, but I appreciate you so much, Taryn. Thank you for making time for me and coming on live and talking about all this stuff and sharing all your knowledge, because I learned a lot, and I love you. You're great. So
thank you. Yeah, you too. No, this was super fun. We'll have to do something like this again sometime.
Of course, absolutely. We have to like trade charts too off camera, obviously.
Oh yeah.
We'll do that. We'll do that eventually. It's fine. But I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Taryn.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Hi guys.